Now that we talked about the future and design systems and design tokens, I want to take you guys a little back in time and back in your earlier days of development, when you actually implemented your own buttons and not imported them from some design system or or library or stuff like that. And yeah, I will talk. My approach will be a bit more bare bones and maybe a bit more hands-on. So I'm risking a bit, hope nothing wrong will happen, but we'll see. And also, just before the talk, I realized that I have no landing page for my talk. So there's this awesome tool called Canva that I learned 2 days ago. So please don't judge me for my very awkward landing page, but here it is. The most effective way to structure, style, and document your components. Or I should say one way of doing that, because I'm sure that there are some of you that would definitely have more insights than me, but here's a perspective and you tell me what you think. So yeah, about scalability, as I already said, I want to tackle this problem from the perspective of adding on new members to your team and how you can make them not be completely lost when they come in and not waste a lot of time to just understand, just get the grasp of everything. And because I don't know about you guys, or if you remember the times where you actually had some small personal projects, but whenever I'm working on my small personal projects, actually, I kind of fear getting successful, because that will mean bringing on more people to the team and introducing them to my code base and to all my insecurities within that code base. And so, yeah, success becomes this kind of source of anxiety, I guess. Luckily for me, my personal projects aren't usually that successful, but still, it's an interesting topic, I would say. And to show you the approach I'm talking about, first off, just for the sake of diversity, I will talk about React Native, exemplify this approach on React Native, and I will also like to exemplify it on this basic login screen. So let's say that we want to implement it. And after making all the high-level decisions with the libraries, the frameworks, this over that, and all that, it's time to get our hands dirty and to start actually writing some code. And in order to write some code, you need a file. And in order to have a file, you need a folder. And here's the first dilemma. How do you actually structure your code? How do you arrange your files and modules so that it's the most easy way to follow what's happening in there? And my approach respects kind of this modified atomic pattern, and also really follows that separation between view and controller, and I try to respect it to a T. And what I'm doing is basically at the top level of my app, I'm having two modules, so the UI and the containers. And the UI, basically, I have all my UI components structured on 3 levels, so primitives, components, and screens. For those of you familiar with the atomic patterns, I'm just the middle part. I've just smashed them all together into components and then just kept the primitives and the screens. So basically, the primitives would be the most basic building blocks of your UI, like the buttons, the inputs, the typography, and so on. The components would be those primitives combined into one cohesive unit, so a form or a button group or stuff like that. And then you have like you put all those components together and have the final screen as it appears in the design. And attention here, all the screen, all that the screen has to do is to look good, and that's it. Because all the other logic will be handled by container and will be injected via props to the screen. And that's basically what containers do. So after we have like an auth screen implemented, let's say, we're taking everything all the logic that's tied to that screen and passing it wrapping the screen into the container and passing it through the container. And we handle all the logic within the container. And the advantage of this approach, from my personal experience, is that bugs become really easy to spot. Because if you have a UI glitch, you'll instinctively go to your UI components. And if you have some more complex logic issue thing, there's just one place where you have to look for it, and that's the container. So yeah, once I started implementing this approach, it did save me quite a lot of headaches, I would say. And that's about it about when it comes to actually structuring your code and your folders. And the second topic, after you've implemented this nice little folder structure, is styling. And talking React Native specific, if you are familiar with the React Native way of styling components, it's kind of a pain in the ass, I would say, because it leads to a lot of code duplication, and also inconsistencies are really easy to fall into. And the best solution to this problem that I've came across so far, without the use of external libraries and so on, so a more bare-bone approach, would be the combination of two libraries called style components and style systems. So while style components is, well, basically visual primitives from the component age. So it lets you pre-styled components that you use as primitives for the whole for the rest of your app. And what the style system does on top of that is that it lets you style your system in a declarative way. So you can do it just like they are showing here. So directly via the props, instead of having to define the style separately in another place. And this actually makes the code look kind of sexy, I would say. And I'll just show you what I mean. So let's say we're going into the primitives, and here we have in our layouts. So first thing that you'll have to do if you want to use this style components and style system approach is first add the code to make the style components work. It's nicely documented in their website, so it's just fine. You basically, instead of using the components coming from React Native, you'll just use the ones exported by their library, or you wrap them up in their HOCs. And then on top of those style components, you add the style system, which is basically this chunk over here, where you define all the parameters that you want to easily modify on that component, so that when you will want to modify a base primitive that you've implemented that way, let's say one of them would be this column thing, where I just predefined that the flex direction should be column. So if I want to define, let's say, a red box with green background and border, I don't know what radius, you can simply do it like, let's say, red box with, I don't know what. You can just do it like this. Bam, and you return it. You use the column you just implemented, and then all the attributes you're just doing, like for the border, for example, you're just doing 1px solid red, and for the background, you're doing something like green. I said green, and then you can also do the border radius and stuff like that. And for those of you, again, familiar with the React Native way of styling components, this is kind of a game changer, at least for me when I discovered it, because you can style your components the same way you would on the web. You don't have to keep researching that whole JSX way of styling them. So yeah, and if you want to further use this component as a basis for another styled one, you can simply do something like export, I don't know, C1. And you can just wrap it in the style wrapper, and that's bam. And you can further define whatever other styles on top of that you need. And just to show you how an actual component looks like with all these primitives implemented, let me just see. So, and the components, this, for example, a big article card. And the beauty of this is that you don't need to run anything, and you can basically visualize the whole component. So here you can see you have a column with a white background, some padding, some border radius, and inside that there's a row with an image, and another row with an icon button, and another row with some text, and then some kind of a button there. So it's really easy to get like the whole sense of it if you're new on a project, and especially because you can see like all the styling and everything right on top without having to search through all kinds of files and stuff like that. And plus, style system and style components also allow you to define a lot of default state. So that helps a lot with the consistency part. And yeah, I think this should cover it when it comes to styling the components. And the final touch, and also maybe a final topic, is actually some kind of a front-end documentation that I've started to personally keep. And it's a more simple and more atypical, I would say, documentation, because it doesn't explain a lot. It's not too hard to maintain. It's actually a few seconds. So what I basically like to do is, let's say I've implemented this form here, and after I've implemented it, I just go to the design and take a quick screenshot of the form, and then I just put that screenshot in some kind of a top level file, and I'm maintaining this kind of markdown file where I'm putting, just to show you in perspective, where I'm putting the component name, the path to it in the code, and the actual screenshot to it. And this results in something really nice. Let me just show you the preview of the markdown file. You'll have this kind of a documentation, and I know it's ugly. I know there are a lot of other options, but this is very, very simple. And from the perspective of someone that's totally new to the code base, and I'm just coming in and trying to figure out where the hell the components are or how to build my screen, I can very easily say I'm on this screen, right? And I'm totally new to the project. I have no idea what's happening, and I have to implement it. So, okay, how do I know if what components I already have implemented? How do I know what I should implement? I just take a quick look over here. Oh, look, this looks kind of familiar to what I need. So it's kind of some kind of a form. It looks like this one. So let's see what the actual code is. This is the code. This is the actual props to it. That's how I use it, and I can just go with it. And this is so simple to maintain, like just adding one new row to this whole markdown file and just modifying the actual screenshot and the path to the component. It literally takes, after you got used to it, it takes like 15 seconds. And I think, I wouldn't say I would use the fit, but I would do a lot for someone that would introduce me to a project with not spectacular and big documentation, but just something like this, where I can see what components are already implemented, where they are, and how they are actually look. And yeah, this is just for the sake of the example. This is a more complete one. Yeah. And here there are a lot of components, and just looking overall at the design and coming to this file, and you have to implement some kind of form or some kind of page where you have no idea how to wrap your head around. Just take a look here, see what looks similar to what you need to do, look in the code, and just like start using it and go for it. And yeah, let me just check my agenda, make sure that I didn't miss anything. I probably did, but yeah. And with this little documentation, again, I know there's storybook. I know there's what Matt's already mentioned. I know there are a lot of more complex and more complete solutions, but there's just when it comes to documentation, but there's just this little magic of having a simple document like this that I can just like navigate to whatever component I want and see how to use it and what's actually happening there. And yeah, on this little magic note, I'd like to, I think, end my talk. I was too inconsiderate to also add a footer page in this Canva thing. But yeah, thanks a lot for your attention. I hope at least I give you some kind of a perspective, even though a more primitive one than what the other guys are talking about. And yeah, if this still stirred any curiosities or any questions for you, I'm here to answer. Thanks a lot, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Sarah, you're muted.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you. I was being a decent human being. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. You're so considerate.
Thank you. Think you could make it better by making it a JSON file.
I'll consider that.
Just think about that.
Yeah.
And also, I thank you so much for your talk, because a lot of the talks usually focus on something that is not applicable right now. Like right now, if your team is under a lot of pressure, you can't just spin up a storybook or spin up whatever you need to spin up. And this is already helpful for a team that's already has a lot of stuff under pressure. It's like, just make a markdown file. Like, that would be really helpful. And I also want to point out that a lot of there is such a thing as too much documentation, which is the opposite of what you want to create, where you get to a project and there is so much documentation that your brain just cannot handle it. It's just too much that you just ignore everything. And then at the end, you're like, why didn't you read the documentation? I was like, because there was 10 pages of it. I have ADHD. I can't do this. You have to give me a video. This is way too much. I just need a link. Yeah. So I do think there's a lot of beauty in trying to boil things down to the most essential things and just give people the most essential things. And if they want to build on that, then if they have time, then they do it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Also, love Style System. 10 out of 10. Just to use it a code sandbox. Love it.
Yeah, I like the approach a lot. I've been using it for a couple of years, and it's really cool to like push everything behind these primitives. You don't have to worry about HTML, and you get really nice API. So it just came to my mind that in the previous session we discussed this tool called I think it's Vidshot or Viteshot. How do you pronounce it? It's Vidshot.
Vidshot.
Yeah, Vidshot. It's a tool that can generate screenshots. So then I started thinking maybe with the screenshot thing, if you do manual screenshots, I guess
I'm sorry.
Vidshots, like vids, like the building thing. Oh, it doesn't work on React Native though.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can get, I mean, that's how you write it. You can check out the previous session. But I was thinking maybe a cool way to do it in some cases will be that you will generate these screenshots on change. So because I think you can get some kind of selector. So if you have a page where you show the layout and you have a selector, you could point to the right spot and then crop. Have some little thing just to generate the things. I think it's really cool way to document what you have.
Really cool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I think you can. I think you can do it, and maybe we can collaborate with Francois on that because it's a cool idea to have this kind of like overview of what you have.
Absolutely.
He also wants to make it work on React Native, maybe. So that would be a good thing to collaborate on. I think that is a very good nice stuff to make it even faster to create, and also like it's more consistent, the size of the screenshots and everything.
That's something we'll have to work on. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like people are just gonna make different screenshots on different devices at different times. Some of them have like the weird box shadow that Macs have, and then there's like 100 pixels of padding on the side.
Oh well, definitely. Always things can always be improved. So yeah, but that's definitely a good idea. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I think that would integrate really nice. Does anyone else have any questions, any thoughts? I just want to say that I really appreciated your talk because you brought us back most to the fundamentals, and it still taught us about design. I forgot the name now. The styling library.
The style system, style components. Yeah.
It's so useful. Style system is so useful. I know there's a lot of discussion of like, should the styles be in the component definition? I'm like, I don't care. It's nice to use. I like it. Like, I think in the end, it's like, do you like it? Is it easier to use and does it make more sense? Yes, then just let it be. Just let it be.
It was also love at first sight for me as well. So yeah.
Every time I actually manually have to type display flex in a style component, part of me cries. I'm like, just use the style system. Why do I have to write display flex? I could just write flex.
Yep, exactly.
It would just be there, and I don't have to like control click to try and find where the display flex is.
Absolutely. Yep.
And when you add aliases and you can't even find it. Yeah, I'm just making up talk right now. But yeah, I really liked your talk. Thank you so much, Dragos.
Thanks a lot.